Hey guys, what's up? This is episode 6 of Just a Millennial. Today we're going to be talking about the collaborative work environment versus a competitive work environment. What are we going to pick? I don't know. Which one's better? I don't know. I don't really think that's what we're going to be doing. We're not picking.
Well, I'm picking.
Oh, you're picking? Okay.
I'm picking when we start the intro, which is
now?
now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael Cherup.
And this is Mikey Okendo.
We are Just Millennials.
As you know.
I mean, if it's your first time tuning in, title is kind of a giveaway.
We're kind of a giveaway visually.
Fairly accurate statement. So today, I guess the big question is collaboration or cutthroat? Collaboration or competitive, depending if you really want to take the nicer term for, that kind of environment. You know, where do you stand? What is the better environment to harbor where you work? And I think from people and this is where, I feel like so many times it's like vendors versus dealers, it's stuff that we talk about. And I feel like vendors are all about collaboration, and I feel like dealers are all about competition. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just the way it's always going to kind of weigh out.
Yeah, and I feel like most dealerships probably have a competitive work environment set up, which is a positive thing in a lot of ways. So it's not like don't expect us to go into this and start tearing into that and somehow being like, oh yeah, everybody should be like Google and tech companies and have ball pits and little patches of grass for people to sit and frolic on. Like, that's not where we're going with this. So please just hear us out.
I don't know. I kind of like that idea. That's just me. I wouldn't mind having a beanbag to sit in.
That's true. But we know that this isn't necessarily something that a lot of dealers are aware of this work environment. Like, everyone's aware of what goes on in Silicon Valley and what tech companies do and the kind of crazy things that they do. But we understand that a lot of that isn't necessarily feasible for your dealerships in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, it might give the customer the wrong opinion if they walk in and there's like a couple of swings and a ball pit and air hockey.
The sales guys are just...
I mean, I could see both sides of that. That could be a really great marketing strategy, but at the same time, it could look really, really bad because it doesn't look as professional.
Like, honey, is that the kids area? That sales guy's in there. This is weird. I want to leave this place now.
Why is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing around in the ball pit? I don't get it.
Yeah, we could see how that would be weird. So don't think we're going in that direction.
We're definitely not taking it that route. But
right.
I mean, where do you stand? Like, which one do you really think is better?
Well, here's the thing, and I think that this is what we're going to get into during this show. I don't really think that there's necessarily one that's better than the other. I think that this goes along with what we've talked about in like a million different episodes already, which is knowing yourself, being self-aware, and knowing your industry, knowing you personally, knowing your management, or if you're a manager or an owner, knowing your people, knowing your demographic of who you're selling to, and then of course knowing your demographic of who you have at your business. All of those things I think are hugely important for figuring out which environment you prefer. But I also think that really this has been like a debate between Silicon Valley and tech companies and traditional companies and other industries for a long time now. I feel like they've been going head to head. I really don't feel like they're mutually exclusive, though. I don't feel like you have to pick. I think that there's a way to get the best of both worlds and get a little bit of both the collaborative and the competitive work environment and mesh them together in some ways that will work really well for your business. That's what I think. I don't know.
I mean, IPD, we harbor technically three different, I guess you could say, cultures within, our main company. You have our call center,
right,
which is more of like, not saying that they don't communicate with each other and they only, work inside their cubicles all day, but they're more the introverts.
Like head down, focused.
They're focused, they're making calls, and that's great. They can turn around, they can talk with each other. It's not like they're stifled to, you know, like literally like a prison.
Yeah.
You have our sales team, which is definitely the competitive nature.
You've
They're
seen
all
them on
friends.
Periscope.
You've seen them on Periscope. Come on, you guys have all seen them.
Yeah.
But they're very competitive. I mean, seriously, like you should see the push-up contest when they go through dudes that are like 350 pounds that have only done like one push-up in their life are like, I can do 50 in a minute, and you're like,
I appreciate the optimism, but I don't think it's happening.
What? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Except for 50 push-ups, because I have never worked out ever.
I'm a drummer and I can't do 50 in a minute, and that's
I mean, in a minute, because that's the other thing. Like 50 push-ups, okay, maybe you can do that. We're not talking about like over the course of like 5 minutes, like within 1 minute, 50 push-ups.
Yeah,
they sometimes do this.
It's pretty intense.
It is.
And then you have the collaborative side, which is, like I said, we harbor 3 different environments entirely, which is our marketing team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of funny how it works out, because you take all these different elements, and I mean, ultimately, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was going to say. You don't have your entire company does not have to fall under one category.
Right.
I mean, I guess you could say as an entire. I mean, we couldn't even peg what IPD as a whole would fall under, because we have so many different environments that are harbored.
Yeah, we're a hybrid.
We're a hybrid. We really are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know it sounds weird to think of a dealership and and for that matter, a sales team for that. You know, in a collaborative effort versus a competitive effort, because you kind of want that competitive edge there for people to, you know, push to sell more, and they want that top spot, you know. But I guess from a collaboration standpoint, you know, if you harbor the team mentality versus the I mentality,
yeah,
I think that's where you're going to get more of the collaboration, where you have a team helping each other out to succeed to their goals versus 8 individuals trying to fight for the number 1 spot and doing what they can to leave the others in the dust.
And here's why I think that's important too, is the collaboration part of it. I think it's important to look at, if you have a solely pure competitive environment right now, that's fine. But I think that there's a way to improve it by making it a hybrid. And I think the real benefit to that is like Mike was just saying, the collaboration brings some really cool things with it. Obviously, you're not going to go super extreme other end of the spectrum and just completely do like the typical tech company in Silicon Valley, but there are benefits to be had from being more collaborative, not just within your department, but cross department. Like, I can't tell you how many times from my personal experience, from listening to friends and family and acquaintances talk about different things that they've had happen to them at a dealership, different experiences that they've gone through. And these are people that live in different locations, not necessarily all in the same like geo-located area. You hear people all the time talk about how they dealt with a sales guy, and then they get to F&I, and it seemed like there was just this huge disconnect where the sales guy, maybe the GSM even got involved with part of the deal, or maybe he greeted them up front as you should, and it was just phenomenal. And then they get to F&I, and then there's some sort of a disconnect where, now I understand, first off, let me back up. Sometimes it's the customer. Sometimes customer have weird expectations, or they didn't quite listen to what you said, or they took something that you said out of context, or they took it to mean something that it shouldn't. So I understand that those things happen. But with that being said, there are also times where the customer did listen, they did understand what you said, and yet still there's a disconnect between, maybe it's not sales and F&I, but there's some sort of a disconnect. Maybe it's with sales and service. You know, maybe you're coming in for service and like for instance, the Volkswagen dealership that Alexis got her car. My wife Alexis has a Volkswagen Beetle, 2014. It's phenomenal. It's an R-Line. It's really, really cool.
I think that's the first time anybody's ever said VW Beetle and phenomenal in the same sentence.
Well, hers is really cool because it's like really upgraded. It's very nice, but I don't drive it because I have my Mustang.
I was going to say, that's probably the first time it's been said in like 30 years since.
From a guy,
From
too.
what, Herbie? Was it Herbie?
Yeah.
From way back when?
Because they weren't cool for a long time. And they were,
they were
and
like 70s something? Like
Yeah.
they were awesome.
And
they
then-
were like no, I won't say they were the original like gas mileage like savers, but they were close to being the first one. I remember a buddy of mine telling me like he would go he would get better gas mileage in his VW Bug than I get in my Note. And my Note averages 35 a week right now in just city. It's
Which is good.
And I was like, that's kind of crazy.
It is.
Like back then, because all they cared about was power back then. And they had nothing.
Power.
Because gas
Clarkson
was power.
It's
like,
Top Gear.
It's like no, we don't talk about Top Gear. We've talked about this.
I know. It's just such a great show. I love Top Gear.
Yeah, see, that's a false statement, and we don't lie on this show.
Yeah, whatever. I like Top Gear, even though Clarkson's on Amazon now, and if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. But
horrible show. Don't watch it.
You should. And by the way, whenever I say that it's an awesome Beetle, like I have my own car. I have a Mustang, and then I have a Triumph Bonneville motorcycle. But I still think hers is cool. Like it's cool for her. I will admit it's not awful looking. It's decent looking car.
No,
but
I will admit it's not awful looking.
Yeah,
I will go that far. I will admit that.
But the cool thing about it is the dealership she got it from, phenomenal dealership. So a lot of times what they'll do is like if we need a service done in the car or something went wrong or it's just an oil change, whatever's happening. A lot of times they are super cool to begin with. They'll actually drive out, pick up her car, leave us a loaner, go take the car to the shop. I mean, sometimes we have to drop it off, but every once in a while they'll do that. And it's just, it's great service, which is cool. But luckily we haven't had this issue, but I know from hearing from friends and acquaintances that there have been some people who have had an issue where that was supposed to happen. Maybe they called and someone was supposed to pick them up, or maybe the dealership didn't do that, so they were going to go drop their car off. They got a loaner car and they get there and they were told one thing and something else happens. Either they were told, hey, yeah, I'll come pick up your car by the service guy, and then someone else from another department was going to pick them up. Maybe it's a sales guy, or maybe it was another service guy even, but then somehow he didn't get the memo. Nobody showed up to pick them up, or they were supposed to drop the car off and a loaner was supposed to be ready, and then they get there and they're out of loaner cars, and there's a problem, and then there's this whole debacle. And it's not always with service. Sometimes it's during the actual sales process, as I said, with the F&I, but there's a disconnect. A lot of times that disconnect is because you don't have a collaborative anything set up, right? Like there's just this huge separation between departments. Like who was it? I think we had someone on the show on Auto Dealer Live recently who was talking about a little bit of a collaboration where they were saying, look, if you're a sales guy and you don't walk into the service department every morning or at least a couple of times each week in the morning to do a couple of things, to say hello to the sales department, everyone there, but two, there may be customers there. You could be missing something by not going over there and potentially using your sales capability to do a very, very nice fluid handoff between service and sales for someone who might be able to upgrade into a new vehicle, maintain the same payments, whatever it may be. So, there's little things like that you can do that are very simple. Every morning, go say hello to the service guys and see what's going on over there. That's something really, really simple. A lot of people just don't do, and it's maybe not a process setup. I get that, you can't have like 50 people coming out of the service department every morning.
Yeah, you can't all file out of your sales meeting and all immediately go to the service department. It doesn't work that way.
But it's little things like that are creative, that if you really just took the time to think, like, what can I do to better bridge the gap for the customer and for your coworkers, because it really benefits both.
Yeah, it really does. It's insane to think about. I think what you're ultimately going to get is neither one of us are ever going to say which one is better, because me personally, I actually think that there are aspects to collaboration, there's aspects to competition that really, when you take the best of both worlds and put them together, you get that hybrid, you get that like really great workplace. Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things about collaboration, and it's a word you'll hear us use quite often because it's kind of a buzzword with millennials, as well as it's just true in general for your company. The two key words are, number one, being transparent with your employees, and number two is having communication in your company. For us, most of us, we all deal with email. I tell everybody, because I'm the IT manager, I'm the AV manager, I handle a lot of stuff on a daily basis, and I have to juggle a bunch of different balls. Wow, I can't believe I just made that. But
many tasks. You're juggling many tasks is what you're juggling.
I'm spinning many plates at the same time, and I have to keep them all spinning. God, plates so much. God, I can't even get past that.
That's funny.
That's right up there with your Swedish intro that unfortunately got cut out.
Oh yeah, that was funny
You
too.
had like 7 different takes after that. It was so great.
I don't know why.
You really used a millennial, and I'm like, wow, what the?
I was thinking about IKEA.
Michael Bjergsen over here has like stepped up to the plate. But I think those are 2 big things. You have to be transparent with your employees. Number one, that there needs to be a clear process. I mean, we've talked about process. I'm not going to keep beating the dead horse on that one. And being transparent just means you're clear in what you're talking about. I think one thing that's really, really difficult for some employees to grasp, and I get dealt with it a lot, is somebody will ask me to do something, and normally my immediate response, which is normally met with hostility, is why. Not because I'm questioning why you're making me do this. I have a very analytical mind. I just have to have a reason behind what I'm working on. Because for me, if somebody just gives me a task and tells me to go, if I don't immediately understand the reasoning just based on our conversation, it immediately feels like busy work to me. So a lot of times I'll look at somebody and go, well, why am I working on this right specifically now? And my very next question is, when does this need to be done? Yeah. Like I said, I'm spinning 6 plates some days at a time, sometimes 10. And I have to go, okay,
to prioritize.
Should I just go ahead and take these 4 plates down, or should I just leave this one over here to start spinning later? Yeah. Be clear and concise with your employees. Number one, like you always have to be clear, and you need to make it acceptable for your employees to ask questions. Now, I'm not saying your employees should question authority. That is not what I am saying. Okay, I'm saying if they ask a question, be open to understanding that maybe they're just out of their own curiosity asking why this is, and like I said, you just have to be transparent when you talk. And I think communication is key. You need to engage in and have communication between departments, between your people. Even if they're in the same department, communication is such a big factor. It's like 72% of the world's miscommunications is because nobody communicated in the first place. I literally just made that stat up off the top of my head.
But it's probably close to true.
It's probably close to true. Probably another thing is, I actually heard this on the radio today. They were talking about a completely different subject, which I can't talk about on here, because even though it's the internet and we can say what we want, we prefer to keep our show fairly clean. Matt Koenig, you're not allowed on here. But they actually said, I don't remember, it was a senator in Utah is trying to pass a bill to basically, he's going against the adult film industry because he's saying when he was an attorney for a marriage attorney, or basically a divorce attorney, it was like something like 60 some odd % of marriages ended because of pornography. And the guy on the radio, which of course he was kind of being funny, but it actually made sense. He goes, it's not because porn, it's because there's a lack of communication between husband and wife, or wife and husband. Lack of communication, not enough communication, or no communication leads to so many more problems. Yes, if you have to communicate to somebody something bad, it's probably gonna suck right immediately. Wow, really?
Right away, maybe?
Really? Where is my English tonight?
It's like you were thinking of, because I do this too. It's like you were thinking of the word immediately, but then you thought, I'm going to say right away, and then you put them 2 together.
Right immediately. New word of the week. Right immediately.
It's sort of like
RIG immediately.
It's sort of like, I don't remember who it was. I was watching this. It was an awful show. It wasn't actually very funny, but there was this one funny bit, and it was this guy who was doing skits, and he was just being this ridiculous character who was supposed to be kind of dumb. And so he introed with this ridiculous accent, and he was like, all right, so let me just kick things off with this. So first and first, mostly, I would like to say that, and then I don't even know what he said, but it was the funniest thing.
Mostly.
And he said it, he was like, yeah, first and first, mostly, I would like to say. So if you really want to get a laugh, maybe, intro a conversation with that, Jim.
Mostly.
So first and first, mostly, I would like to say that.
You know what? I'll make an example on communication, especially in a collaborative effort. I just watched The Martian Friday night.
I need to watch that.
Excellent movie. Yeah. Definitely worth a watch. But think about this. Think about the next big NASA trip, which I guess the next really gigantic step, which I don't necessarily think it's NASA. I actually think it's China. But the really big thing that's coming on the horizon is they're sending a bunch of people to Mars to basically die. to sum it up.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to do that. They're going to study. They're going to send back a lot of data. But essentially, they've already said, we're not spending the money to bring you back. So just take
That's
your helmet.
commitment.
Just take your helmet. Take your helmet off when you guys run out of resources.
That's crazy.
But imagine if you have a team of 20 people walking in, and their only task is, making sure that the propulsion system to get the rocket out of the atmosphere. That's all their job is, and there's 20 people. And imagine if every single person worked on the same problem, and they had 20 different answers when they walked into that meeting. Think about that. How ridiculous is that?
It's not very productive.
Number one, it's not productive. Number two, you have nothing but mass confusion because everybody, just like math class, you probably had, of those 20 people, you had 12 people get it right, and then you got 8 other random answers, and then all of a sudden everybody's questioning themselves to see if they got the wrong or the right answer. And then you always have those 2 guys that they probably got the wrong answer, but they know they got the right answer, even though you know it's wrong because they're outweighed, but they're just like, no, I'm right. You have confusion, you have almost like a panic state because people start questioning themselves, and it harbors this horrible environment when there is no communication amongst team members. And here's the thing. Every department is its own team. I understand that.
Right.
It's something that really needs to be demonstrated. Everybody at your dealership, your company, however big it is all on the same team.
Yes.
You're all on the same team.
But it doesn't always come across that way.
No.
If you don't collaborate very well.
No, absolutely
which is
not.
what we're talking about. That's why it's such a big deal, because if you are on the same team, which is what you're supposed to be in the eyes of your consumer, there should be a degree of coordination amongst departments that is actually pretty darn good. You should be able to execute on things and quickly hand things off very easily. And the biggest point is context. Like, we always talk about clarity, which is huge, but context is also a massive, hugely important thing, because like Mike was talking about when he was saying, somebody comes up to him, he asks, they say, hey, can you do this for me, man? And he's like, well, why am I doing this? That's not meant to be a snarky thing. The point of it is, he's trying to put all of the things that are going on in his day in the context. With meetings, with anything that you have to do, you have to be able to put things in the context. And what that means very simply is put it in the bigger picture. You have to look big picture. You can't look at the little tasks. You have to track the tasks, but then you have to attach and associate those tasks with the bigger picture of your day, and then associate that with your week and your month and your year. I mean, you just have to, and your quarterly goals. The point is, if you don't do that, and if you're not able to do that, he may not be able to do the best job that he could do, because there are potentially details that are lost if you don't get the context. And then things happen, things fall between the cracks that are sometimes simple, but to the consumer, it's a huge deal.
My watch is going off telling us that it's time to wrap up. So during the wrap up, I mean, this is going to be my big point.
Yes.
And we actually did this at our company. And I actually believe it was based on something Dave Ramsey wrote. Dave and Diana bought, we already keep notepads in the office for everybody to use. Like, that's been a thing for a while. But they bought an excess amount of them.
Branded notepads too, which is just cool.
Yeah, and they bought an excess amount of them, and they gave it to every person and said, for the next month, I want you to write down everything you do in a day, whether it's checking your emails, responding to emails, going into a meeting, and mark the amount of time it takes you to do that.
And just be honest about it,
Now, at first, it made no sense to most of us, because we're like, they just came out and they told us all this one day, and we're like, what is that?
Right. What are we doing?
It's kind of like, okay, are we writing our own death note here? Like, whoever does the least, is getting fired. What it ultimately boiled down to was they didn't hook up the notepads and literally randomized them and gave them to other people. They knew whose notepad it was because your name was on it.
Right.
And it suddenly made people aware of how much you actually do. Because I think a lot of times in a work environment, and I get like this, Mikey, I'm sure you get like this. It's nothing to be mad about, because everybody does it. Is most of the time, unless you're Tim Leap at our company, you believe you do the most work in the office.
You judge other departments. You think you're better.
That's what it is. It happens. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But it gives you this sudden realization that you may think you understand what they actually do during the day, but you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, how much they actually accomplish, in a day.
And you realize how unproductive it is to go around playing not the blame game, but trying to figure out who's most important, who's the top dog, who makes the biggest deal for the dealership. I make the most money. Like, at the end of the day, it's a symbiotic environment, which is a very annoyingly scientific and nerdy way of saying that the environment is something that everyone works together with and feeds off of one another with, and there is no single group that does the one thing that like keeps everybody in business. Everybody working together as a group is what keeps everybody in business. And it's completely futile to try to figure out who's most important. Like, okay, like let's say you have a big debate figure out who's most important.
I can tell you
what?
For a long time, and for those that are listening, will know exactly where I'm going, particularly Josh Fontaine.
Oh, no.
I never let him live this down. It was, and I've got to make this quick because we're running out of time. I'll never let him live this down. It was my third week at work. I was still getting my feet under me. I was literally sealing up all of the brakes per se in the pipe that were duct taped over.
No.
And something.
So you were busy.
Something wasn't getting. It's not that I wasn't busy. Something wasn't getting done.
Yeah.
And actually, what it happened to be was our programmer was working on something for me, and he just got it back for me, and I did an ROI report for Dave. Now, somebody in the sales team had asked me for a week and a half to get an ROI. Now, granted, I didn't have the form back. And obviously Dave's the CEO, not that any other person's less important, but his task kind of jumped to the front of my task list. Well, the then sales manager at the time pulled me aside and, told me, look, we're the sales team. We pay the bills around here. And I looked back at him. Now, granted, I'm 3 weeks in. Like, this might tell you just how much huevos I have when I deal with stuff like this. I looked back at him and said, no, Diana pays the bills around here. He's like, well, no, we make the money. No, Diana pays the bills around here because she's the one that decides that money that you guys make for the company, that's also based on the work of every other person in this company, goes to those bills, or they could just shut down the office and go their separate way. No, it's determined by them. And also, you guys wouldn't be able to sell if everybody else didn't do what they did. And like, we had a really it was kind of like a headbutting match per se. Josh probably is going to tell you that he remembers it differently. Josh, just be honest with yourself. You know who I am. You know I was exactly like that.
But ultimately, let's think like best case scenario, even if that had gone differently, and not that this is what happened, but even if the end of it, like you were like, oh, you're right, you're the most important. Like, again, not that that's what happened, but like what does that accomplish?
It never accomplishes anything.
At the end of the day, you just leave the room and you feel like your chest is puffed out and you're like, oh, I've inflated my own self-importance, but you've done absolutely nothing to grow your business or do the important things that matter. So just stop arguing about it because it doesn't matter. Please, but do what we were talking about, put everything into context of the overall big picture, because really that's what collaboration is. It's being able to take what each department is doing, having an understanding of what each department is doing, so you're not isolating yourself. You're reasonable. You're open-minded. You're not prideful. You're not excluding other people. So you communicate with them. You put everything into context of what they're doing, what you're doing, what the overall business's goals are, what everyone's priorities are. You're understanding. You have a reasonable amount of patience. Really, it's just keeping the lines of communication open and putting everything into context for yourself and for other people. And honestly, you will be so much better. So much better.
Well, folks, we are probably over on time. So with that being said, I'm Michael Cherub.
And this is Mikey Okendo.
We out. So this week, Starbucks drink of the week, which I definitely highly recommend. This is my actual every morning drink now. It is a Trenta iced coffee, no classic, none of that sugar syrup, coconut milk, light ice, 3 pumps of vanilla. Now this can be altered. I've tried it. It's 3 pumps of vanilla. I've done 3 pumps of hazelnut. I've done 3 pumps of pumpkin when pumpkin was in season, which Starbucks, if you're listening, pumpkin needs to be around all year round. Let's be honest.
I don't like pumpkin. Pumpkin's gross.
You're a communist, okay? So we don't pay attention to what you want, okay? Go back.
Pumpkin's gross.
But you can swap out the flavor for anything you ever want. Super simple drink. And also, I definitely recommend mobile ordering. It's the greatest thing in the world to walk into Starbucks, when there's like 8 people waiting on their drinks. You literally walk in the door, especially when you do it often enough that the people at my Starbucks recognize me when I walk in, hand me my drink while they're steaming somebody else's milk that's been waiting for 5 minutes. I grab my straw and walk back out. So that's been, yeah.